Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning from Spain, and depending on where you are, good evening, good afternoon, good night, depending on where you're actually watching for. I think that's just a notification for me. Yeah, so there's a few things we're going to talk about this morning. Still no news about poor Samantha, about her body being found, as far as I know. Still no news. But I wanted to talk about a couple of other cases that have got echoes for whatever reason about Samantha's case. No, they're not, identical, but they've got echoes. Hi, Amanda Jane. Hi, Kelly. So I'm going to light my candle. Will today be the day? Will today be the day when, Samantha will be brought home? But the two cases that I just want to talk about, that I can draw some correlations between. One is a murder in Ballarat, where a woman, Kobie Parfitt, was actually found in a mine shaft, finally found in a mine shaft. Her body was found in a mine shaft, and her murderer was caught and prosecuted. So I wanted to talk about that because I think that's relevant. One, because it's in Ballarat. It was in Ballarat last year this happened, so in that same place. And two, obviously, because she was found down a mine shaft, so her body was found. So there's a hope there, because I think we're sort of losing hope a little bit that Samantha will be found. And, there's quite a lot of, not nice rumours going around about what might have happened to her body and why it's not been found yet. So all that is quite distressing, isn't it? So hopefully, at least Kobie's body was found, and that does give some closure, doesn't it, to the friends and family? At least a little bit of closure. So that's what we're going to look at, the Kobie Parfitt case. I will look at that first. And then after that, I want to tell you, for any of you that don't know, if you are Australian, you will definitely know about Ivan Millat, who was probably, he's probably the most notorious killer in Australian history, isn't he? He's like the equivalent of the Yorkshire Ripper in Britain. He's notorious. Everybody knows about him. He killed a lot of people, but also it's thought that there's a lot of other people that he killed that have never been, it's never been established, that it's not been, prosecuted for. Now, he is deceased now, he's no longer with us. He died in 2019. So he will be paying for his crimes in a different way now, hopefully. Yeah, he died in prison. He got a life sentence. Hi, Ivan the Terrible. Yeah. So yeah, very nasty man. But the reason that I want to talk about him as well is, the young lad that has been charged with Samantha's murder. So presuming that he is guilty, we don't know that yet. It's still alleged, isn't it? He's got to have his trial. And, might he have turned into a kind of Ivan Millat? I mean, because Ivan was, or Ivan, he was at a time when, we didn't have the DNA resources that we have now. We didn't have the mobile phone pings, all the things that have helped to catch Samantha's killer and helped to catch killers day in, day out. If it wasn't for that, would we even now have anyone in custody for Samantha's murder? And, would that boy, Patrick Stevenson, would he go on to commit more crimes? I mean, we don't know that yet because we don't even know how he killed her yet or what the circumstances were. But it was just something that was kicking around my head. For someone like Ivan Millat, he really prospered because he moved from place to place. We'll see like what he did. He even faked suicide once, to escape detection, because he had a life of crime ever from when he was like an adolescent. He was involved in petty crime. Hi, Blind Bee. A lot of these killers, they start off with petty crime, don't they? And then build up to more serious crimes as they get older. Oh my God, Kelly. So Kelly says her English work colleague knows someone who thinks she hitched a lift with Ivan years ago. My God, how terrifying. Yeah, because he probably won't have killed everybody that he picked up. It probably depended on a few things. Maybe even just what mood he was in that day, whether he liked the person or not. You know, the other one who did that was the co-ed killer, Ed Kemper. He did loads of practice runs before he actually murdered anybody, picking up girls and hitchhiking co-eds. And so I'm sure there's a lot of women out there who look back and realise that they were in the car with Edmund Kemper, who went on to sort of murder many women, many young girls. You know, it's quite sort of chilling, isn't it, to think that you may have been in a car with that person. Anyway, we're going to look at him second. First of all, I just want to look at this case of Kobie Parfitt, because this, I think, should let us keep, you know, because as I say, every morning, every time I come onto the computer, I light this candle. And, you know, but God knows how Samantha's family feels, because it does feel more, you know, I don't know, every day that goes past, it feels a bit depressing, doesn't it, as to whether we are going to, whether Sam is coming home, you know, and we mustn't lose hope. But very, very, it's difficult not to lose hope, isn't it? And all the family will be wanting now for comfort is to bring Sam's body home and give her a decent burial. Now, and you know, and a farewell, because I've not a chance to say goodbye to her properly. So let's have a look at this case of Kobie Parfitt. And poor Kobie, you know, she was a mother of 4. Let me just, so let me share this. Hang on. So yeah, I had a brief look at it the other day, but I didn't know enough about it that I felt to talk about it. So I've researched it a bit now, and yeah, it's awful. So this poor woman, who's a mother of 4, was killed by her friend, a woman, another woman, Shannon. And she died, she was killed on April the 28th in 2020. So it's a fairly recent case. And then what this woman did, let's see if it is the picture on here. I've got a picture of the perpetrator, but it's on another article. Let's just read this article first. So she was killed at home, and she knew that this person was after her. She sent messages to her friends saying how scared she was, that she kept saying that they, whoever they were doing laps around her house, and she felt that one day they would catch her on her own. She knew that she was in danger for them. Now, I'm not sure why she didn't go to the police, or maybe she did go to the police. There's some sort of drug involvement in this, so maybe she didn't want to go to the police. But anyway, finally, on April the 28th, 2020, Shannon Jeffrey fatally assaulted her in her home. But because she put her down the mine shaft, it was 8 months before she was found. 8 months. So, but she was found, so we've got to cling on to that. Her body was found down a mine shaft. So, you know, the guy, is it Raymond, the mine shaft expert? He says he's going to carry on going down these mine shafts, and good for him, because Samantha may well be down one, might she? So this horrible woman, a twankess, if you like, or a twankette, Shannon, she'd been in prison. She'd only been released from prison for 10 days when she murdered Kobie. And apparently she was angry towards her because she had grassed her up. You know, that she had said something to the police about her. And while she was in custody, her feelings just festered, it says here, which I think is a good descriptive word. You know, her resentment, her animosity towards Kobie just festered while she was in prison. So she'd been less than 2 weeks out of prison before she murdered Kobie. I mean, for goodness sake, you know, was she so keen to go back into prison, or was it just drugs? You know, because she was on drugs. So Miss Parfitt, Kobie, she'd repeatedly called and messaged her former partner for help, saying she'd been warned of what has been planned. And she said, I am dead if I stay here alone. So that's the terror that she was living through. And she'd packed up her belongings and booked a storage unit 2 days before her death. But unfortunately, she didn't quite get out in time. So apparently on that day, she had asked a neighbour to call the police when she returned home, because she found that Shannon Jeffrey and her associates at her house. And they had spent 3 hours at the house the day before, taking her belongings. And horribly, anything about murder, of course, is horrible, but this is particularly horrible. Because she said that she told an associate she'd assaulted Kobie. This is Kobie, a mother of 4 children, a grandmother as well. And she told an associate that she'd killed her and then hung up her body to make it look like a suicide. So, I mean, you know, we don't know all the details. We don't know why she decided that wasn't working. And then decided to take her off and dump her in a mine shaft. I don't know why she changed her mind about the suicide thing. Maybe, you know, Kobie had lots of injuries that weren't consistent with hanging. So maybe in the end she decided that she would take the body and dump it. So anyway, apparently her Shannon Jeffrey and her associate returned to the home to wrap Miss Parfitt's body in plastic and bedding, fearing that her fingerprints were on her body. That's why. And they then drove 30 kilometres to Snake Valley near Ballarat, where they dumped Kobie's body in a mine shaft. So the guy, he only got a couple of more. He's out anyway now, I think. James Prestige, I think so. I don't think he got very long sentence, because he was sentenced for assisting in her death, of course. He didn't kill her. So 8 months it took for this crime to be resolved. But apparently it wasn't until August that her family officially reported her missing, which sparked the police investigation, which ultimately led to the discovery of Kobie's body in December 2020. And it was phone records from his mobile phone, from the guy that helped Shannon dump Kobie's body. Phone records from Prestige's mobile led police to the Snake Valley location. So in the meantime, this woman, Shannon Jeffrey, moved into her property, organised the transfer with the landlord and real estate agent, and claimed that that Kobie had moved to Queensland. And this is nice to see that the Justice Michael Croucher said that her behaviour after the manslaughter, well, they're calling it manslaughter, worsened the seriousness of the offence. So she was arrested in January 2021. So Kobie's mother and 2 aunts told the court their lives had been shattered by Kobie's death. We've all been living in this nightmare, they said, so you can try to get away with what you've done. So apparently it was a drug-fueled attack, you know, so, I expect it was awful, you know, when there's drugs involved, I bet it was frenzied, because she had taken methamphetamine, meth, on the morning she killed Kobie. And her lawyer said that she wanted to study, work and reunite with her daughters after she was released from prison. Yeah, right. Well, you know, she's took that away from Kobie, murdered Kobie, hid her body down a mine shaft. You know, what sort of respect is that for somebody? Whether, you know, whatever your grievance with somebody, you know, that's just an awful thing to do, isn't it? Now we'll look at the sentence now. So let's see, what sentence did she get? 10 years. Oh, come on, 10 years. So what? 10 years in jail for killing a Victorian mother of 4 and dumping her body down a mine shaft. Hanging her body up to make it look like suicide. Then driving 30 kilometres away to Snake Valley and dumping her body down a mine shaft. She gets 10 years. Because, do you know, I think this is part of the reasoning behind Patrick Stevenson's thoughts, is the longer he can leave the body undiscovered, the longer the decomposition and the harder it is to establish cause of death. And I think this is something to do with what happened here. If you can't prove the cause of death, it's difficult to prove murder and not manslaughter. And obviously, manslaughter has a lesser charge, because I just don't see how this is manslaughter. You know, she's been threatening her for weeks, driving around her house, threatening her, doing all these things, moving into her flat afterwards, telling everybody she's, you know, covering up the evidence. All these things. How can she only get 10 years? You know, I just find that disgusting, to be honest. It's disgusting. So yeah, because she pled guilty to manslaughter. This is like, this might happen with Patrick. What he might do is, nearer the trial date, etc., which isn't till August, he'll probably wait as long as he possibly can, and then he will say where the body is. And then by the time they recover the body, they won't be able to prove cause of death, and he'll plead guilty to manslaughter. And he'll get a lesser sentence. I'm sure that's all playing in his mind. So even though this judge called it cruel and callous, and he said the cruelty and callousness of Jeffrey's behaviour after the manslaughter aggravated the seriousness of the offence, he still only gave her 10 years. Even though he said after the killing she had oodles of time to reflect on her actions and choose to do the decent thing thereafter. She could have come forward, and it might have in some way alleviated the family's suffering. This is just like what we would say to the twonk Patrick, isn't it? Alleviate the family's suffering. But he's not doing that, because he's thinking more of how he's going to get the short. If he only got 10 years, if Patrick Stevenson only got 10 years, he'd only be 32 when he came out of prison. So is that his plan? Is that his plan, to hold off saying where the body is for as long as possible, for maximum decomposition, and then just say it was an accident, or, you know, it was manslaughter, plead guilty to manslaughter? Terrible, isn't it? So Miss Parfitt's family members released a statement after the court hearing, saying that no sentence would bring her home. We're left powerless and voiceless, and the trauma and distress continues, the family said in the statement. We will never hold her or hear her voice. Today, Sharon Jeffries gotten off lightly, and our grief remains a life sentence. She bloody has got off. She has got off lightly. So anyway, the reason, if you like, if you can think of it as a reason, that she got angry, as we were saying, she got angry towards Kobie while she was in custody serving time for another offence. She had personal items stored at her home, and she believed that Kobie was selling them. And she also held Kobie responsible for her arrest. So there's a picture somewhere. I've got some photos of the perpetrators somewhere. Right, let me just put that down. I need to put, right, let me just put some windows down. Too many windows open, then I get confused. Oh, let's have a look at this video. So I wanted to show you this video of at the time. So when the police were searching for down the mine shafts, etc., this was a video that was on the news at the time, and in December 2020. So let's hope that it won't be long before we'll be seeing a video like this about Samantha's case.
The hunt for a suspected murder victim just a few hundred metres from their doors has shocked Snake Valley locals.
This is usually a nice, safe, little town. But, yeah, it's a bit scary.
The search for 43.
It's funny, isn't it, when people say, oh, this is a nice, safe little town, nothing ever happens here. These things happen everywhere. Though, to be fair, the actual MURDER didn't happen there. That's where they dumped her body.
Year-old Ballarat woman Kobie Parfitt resumed this morning with the search and rescue unit combing through dense bushland along the Pitong Snake Valley Road, covering around 2 kilometres. For some locals, the news has been hard to process.
I'm still taking it in, to be quite honest. It's a nice, quiet little town, so.
There you go, there again, it's a nice, quiet little town, like St. Michael's, where Nikki sort of came to her unfortunate end for reasons that we're not quite sure of still. Things happen in nice, quiet little towns. And as I say, although she wasn't actually murdered here, this is where her body was taken and dumped. And it must be a shock for the community. It must be, when you live in one of those little places where nothing ever happens, it must be a shock.
Yeah, extremely surprising.
Detectives have confirmed Miss Parfitt was last seen alive at a property on Hickman Street on April 28, where they suspect she was murdered. Police say they're confident they're close to locating Miss Parfitt's body. This area has already been searched on numerous occasions, with detectives saying they'll return each time they get a new lead. It's hoped the search will yield crucial answers and give Miss Parfitt's family closure.
It's sad for the family because they don't know where she is or anything. So hopefully they will find her and she'll be safe somewhere anyway. That's all we can hope, isn't it?
The search is expected to continue throughout the week. For Shayla Kumarawansa, Win News.
Yeah, so
the hunt for a suspected.
So now I've got some photos of the. Let's see. Gosh, I end up with that many windows open. Right. So this is. I'm going to show you now the actual murderer. It's always more startling when it's a woman, isn't it? And this was her friend as well. I mean, she planned this. This is what I don't understand. She planned it. How can she be... how can she only get a 10-year sentence? Because it was planned. Where's the photo? Here she is. Well, that's a better photo of her than some of the ones. So she'd been released from... This is Sharon Jeffrey, who actually murdered Kobie. Bashed her and killed her, hung her in a closet to make it appear that it took her own life at first, and then thought that her fingerprints might be on the body. So they coldly came back. Kobie's body she had hung her up in her house as if she committed suicide. So what if her children would have seen that? I mean, where were the children? Oh, and she also said Kobie died on her knees, begging to be taken to her father's house or to the police. And she only got 10 years. Oh, come on, this is wrong. This is so wrong. And then she moved into her property and told everyone that she had gone off to Queensland. So that because of that, that's why it was 3 months before she was reported missing. So she obviously had some sort of lifestyle that the family weren't surprised, when she said that she'd gone off to live in Queensland. Maybe she'd done things like that before. But it was because of false rumours spread by her that it was 3 months before they reported her missing. And yeah, due to the state of decomposition, forensic pathologists were unable to identify how she died. That it just makes me wonder, you know, because that guy, Patrick Stevenson, he'll know about this murder. If he's from Ballarat and this is Ballarat, he'll have read about this. He'll know about it, especially if he's got an interest in true crime. You know, if he was sort of starting thinking about maybe he'd quite like to, you know, kill someone, which he could have been thinking about it for ages. He'll know about this murder. So is he thinking of that? Is he thinking of that? I'm going to do what Shannon did. Shannon Jeffrey did in Kobie's murder. I'm just going to say nothing until the last minute, and then I'll say where the body is, and then I'll admit to manslaughter. Has he learnt from this? So now it's interesting that they're saying to locate the mineshaft, police use phone records from Jeffrey's accomplice. Well, the police have said they don't think that there is any accomplice involved now in Samantha's murder, whereas originally the police did say that they did think there was maybe one or more people, even multiple people was said. But now they're not saying that, but that might be a way of lulling someone into a false sense of security. So I'm sure the police are checking all sorts of phone records, and that might be how they end up locating Samantha. Not from Samantha's phone records, not even from Patrick's phone records, but maybe from the phone data of somebody else. They might get an idea of where she is. But I do, you know, I'm starting to feel that maybe Patrick has learnt from this, because he'll know about it. It's in Ballarat. And her barrister said the mother has spent a great deal of time thinking about her actions. She struggles to understand why she acted the way she did. Well, because she was drugged up, probably. And it makes her feel awful. She now says she should have been honest with what occurred earlier. Well, do you know what? She can say anything. But she was cruel, she was callous. It wasn't in a moment. She hung her up to make it look like she'd killed herself. She then went back, took the body and hid it. She moved into her apartment. She lied about where she was. Do you know, that is not manslaughter. I don't see in a million years how you could think of that as manslaughter. Oh, so she had some supporters in court because Jeffrey's supporters, Shannon Jeffrey's supporters, stood and waved, calling out, "I love you, Sharon." Good God. Yeah, whatever. Let's have a look at another picture. So this is her probably as she really is, because we saw that other photo of her where she looked sort of, you know, this is the face that Kobie saw looking at her when Kobie was begging for her life, begging to be taken to her father's, probably begging to see her children again. That is the face she saw looking at her. And now this woman will be out in 10 years. Well, she's done a year now, probably already. She's probably only got another 8 or 9 years to go. And she's in prison. And then she'll be walking around Melbourne or wherever she decides to go and live, somewhere around Victoria. So in not that longer time in the future, this twonkette will be walking around free. So she's 32, she'll only be in her 40s, early 40s. That's where you see the real her. Look in her eyes there. She's not a good person. She's literally got away with murder. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But it makes me wonder, has Patrick Stevenson seen about that case? I'm sure he knows about that case. There's no way he doesn't know about it. It's a murder in Ballarat, and I'm pretty certain that he will know about that case. Hi, Wesley. So, I am having a nice morning. Thank you, Wesley. I hope you are too. It is a beautiful day here in Spain. I'm going to get some sun later. I haven't had any sun for ages, so I've decided I am definitely going to go and try and get some sun. So that was one case that I wanted to talk about. So that's the case of poor Kobie, and, you know, prayer for Kobie, prayer for her children, 4 children, 1 grandchild, that they'll be growing up without their mother, without their grandma. And then whereas that one case will be out very soon, just ready to do it all over again, probably. Who knows? But just makes you so angry, doesn't it? I don't know how Kobie's family are coping with it, because I don't think I could cope with it. You know, it would consume me. I would like to think I could, you know, rise above it or whatever, but I don't know if I could. And I think I'd be there waiting for when she came out. She'd have to look out for me, because if she'd murdered my, you know, loved one, and she was coming out after that time, you know, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm just saying now, I think I might feel, anybody, if it was their family, how they might feel. Because if you see that at least justice is done and someone gets life in prison, even if they just get a decent sentence, you know, if they don't get the whole life in prison, you know, but 20 years upwards, but to just get 10 years, it just, for what she did, just seems an insult. It's an insult. Anyway, so the other case that I wanted to talk about, that I can see echoes of Samantha's case, not because, again, it's like Kobie's case is completely different from Samantha's case in the reasons, you know, why she was murdered, etc. The similarities was like how long it took to find her body, and the fact that the body, well, and it was in Ballarat, of course, the murder, well, I'm not supposed to call it a murder, was the manslaughter, it was murder, was in Ballarat, and then that Kobie was found down a mine shaft. Finally, so this might, you know, and I do think there's a correlation there. I do feel that Patrick Stevenson will know of that case, and that could be one of the reasons why he's just not telling where Samantha is now, because he'll just keep that knowledge to himself as long as possible. And know that he may only get 10 years, because that's what she got, 10 years. So it's not, you know, it doesn't encourage people to tell the truth, does it? Anyway, this other case, cases. So this is, I'm going to talk to you about Ivan Millat, who was, as I say, one of the most famous, or infamous, I suppose is a better word than famous, an Australian serial killer, who, you know, he left his mark on history, that's for sure. You know, I will be reading out the list of his official victims, but it's thought that he may have had many, many more victims. But let's have I'll put a picture of him up while I just tell you a little bit about him and his background. You know, he's certainly an interesting character, and he had a big family, very, very big family. And some of his family, you know, there's other news that I'm going to tell you about his family too. Let me just find a picture of him first to put up. And that's the, hang on. Let me just find the pictures of him. I'll put his pictures up while we're watching, while I'm telling you about him. Yeah, I put this one up because, well, so that you can see it. He loved to play with guns. You know, he was a very violent man. So here we've got him, look, in his heyday, if you like, with the moustache and posing with the guns, etc. This is him just before he died. He died in 2019. He died, and we're going to look at his last interview, because they tried to interview him to get some more information, you know, to try and find out. I mean, look at him with this gun here, but you know what? So they interviewed him just before he died to try and get any information they could about any possible other victims, but he never told, he could have redeemed himself a little bit by giving up some of his other victims. Couldn't he, really? That's something that he could have done to redeem himself a little bit, but he chose not to. He would not tell. Look at him with these guns. Just makes you wonder, has he got a button mushroom? Has he got a button mushroom that he has to, use guns to make himself look like a man? Because just makes you wonder. Anyway, he had his karma, really, even in prison, but God, I hope he's getting some karma in the next world as well. Yeah, horrible man. But you know what? Women liked him. He had a lot of women, apart from the fact the RAPD'd a lot of women, there's a lot of women found him attractive anyway. He wasn't short of women. But yeah, horrible twonk. Anyway, now the reason that I could see an echo of Ivan. I mean, one of my subscribers sort of sent me some information about it, but I didn't know about him. But I thought, it'd be interesting to talk about him because the correlation, if you like, I mean, it's not really a correlation, but it just makes me wonder, do you think if Patrick Stevenson, who's only 22 years old, if he hadn't been caught by technology, presumably it's technology that's caught him. In these days, in Ivan Milat's day, there was no technology like there is now, and I think DNA was probably in its infancy, so it was a lot harder to catch him, and he was allowed to go on, and he managed to go on and kill several people. But my question is, and I've asked this question a few times, is that the end? Is it the end now for the reign of serial killers? Because are they going to get caught so much more quickly now because of DNA advances, technology advances? Has Patrick Stevenson been nipped in the bud? Would he have gone on to kill more women? Allegedly, of course. We have to remember he hasn't actually been tried yet and found guilty. But I just think if the police have arrested him and charged him with murder, they haven't done that for the hell of it. They must be pretty certain that he has done it for whatever reason. And the reason they're not divulging their reasons is because they don't want to prejudice the trial. So we will find out when the trial comes what the evidence is against him. So let me tell you a little bit about Ivan. I mean, I'm reading off Wikipedia here, and his Wikipedia page is very long. So, when they've got a very long Wikipedia page, they're a bit of a twonk, really. So he was born in 1944 on the 27th of December in Guildford in New South Wales, Australia. And he died on the 27th of October 2019. He was 74 years old, and he was in Long Bay Correctional Centre in Wales, in New South Wales. Now, he didn't have the best background, I suppose you could say, but, at the end of the day, there was 14 children in his family, but the others didn't turn out to be serial killers. So, as you know, I don't accept that as an excuse for going out and murdering people just because you've had a difficult background or a poor background, or your father was an alcoholic, or your mother was a prostitute, or whatever. I don't accept any of that because there's lots of people have that same background and do not go on to murder lots of people. So his modus operandi was to approach backpackers. So quite often they call him the backpacker murderer because he would pick them up, hitchhikers, backpackers, not only women on their own, he would pick up couples. And he would, offer to give them lifts, places. Then he would take them to the Belanglo State Forest. So the Belanglo State Forest will always be synonymous with the name of Ivan Millat, won't it? And there he would incapacitate them. He might rape them. He might torture them. He did some terrible, terrible things, they think. He sort of played with them, really. And, you know, he was convicted of abducting, assaulting, robbing and murdering 2 men and 5 women. But it's thought that he's committed many, many similar offences around Australia. You know, that they just don't know for certain, that they've tried to find out. Oh, my little dog's asleep next to me here. I don't know if you can see him. You know, I've got this chair now. Oh, you can't see him. Oh, yeah, you can. You can just see him in the back of me there. Hi, Lady Dog Lover. Hi, Pamela. Hi, Kelly. A poor mushroom. Yeah. Well, that's why he had to have those guns. That's why he had to have those guns, because apart from that, he had a button mushroom. Anyway. Right, where was I? So I was reading you about him. So he was the 5th of 14 children. 14 children. And his father was a Croatian emigrant and labourer, Stefan Marko, and his mother was an Australian national, Margaret Piddleston. My God, that poor woman, 14 children, bloody hell, no wonder they were impoverished. So they lived on like a cottage farm near Sydney, and then eventually they relocated to Liverpool. Now, they all went to Catholic schools. All the children went to Catholic schools. Apparently, the parents were conscientious in raising them, educating them, disciplining them. However, his father did have a temper, because he was an alcoholic, apparently. And there were 10 of those 14 children were boys. And they were well known to local police. They were used to handling knives and firearms, and they would spend their afternoons shooting at targets in their parents' yard. Now, his siblings, his brothers and sisters, say that he did display antisocial and psychopathic behaviour at a young age. He would attack animals with machetes. I mean, you know, this is what I'm saying. The rest of the family didn't, so why did he do it? Because he was evil. Some people are born evil. I honestly believe that 100%. I know that conditioning or your background can maybe make things worse, but I don't think your background can make you attack an animal with a machete. You know, I just don't think so. You know, I grew up on a council estate with lots of poor people, and, you know, they didn't all go off and do that. I do remember there was one of my brother's friends who did something horrible to a budgie, put it in a vice. When I think about that now, I think, I wonder what he grew up into, you know, because why would you do, you know, anyone who would even think about doing something like that, there's something wrong inside them. That's not because of their bad upbringing. You know, we all had the same upbringing. Anyway, so he was already, you know, he was typical, really, psychopath in the making, attacking animals. He was doing, you know, lots of things that he shouldn't have been doing. And so he ended up in a residential school at 13. And by the time he was 17, he was in juvenile detention centre for theft. By 19, he was involved in shop break-ins. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison for breaking and entering, driving a stolen car a month after he was released. 2 years hard labour he had to do. And then in September 1967, only 22 years old, he was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment for theft. So he was involved in all, I suppose it's not very petty, that crime, but that's how they start off, these twonks, isn't it? They start off doing these, you know, harming animals, in and out of detention centres, doing, you know, all sorts of things. You know, a lot of teenagers do get involved in shoplifting, you know, maybe drug offences, etc. But most of them sort of grow out of it, don't they? But the twonks, the proper twonks, they get their behaviour escalates. So this is what's happened with him. So then in 1971, this is the first time that we know of that he committed a much more serious crime, because he abducted 2 young 18-year-old female hitchhikers and with a knife, and he RAPD'd one of them, and then they managed to escape. So he was charged with 1 count of RAPE, 2 counts of armed robbery. And then while he was awaiting trial, he was involved in a string of other robberies with some of his brothers. And then what he did to escape the trial, he faked his suicide. He faked his own suicide by leaving his shoes at the Gap, which is a well-known Sydney suicide site, which, let's have a look. Yeah, it's an ocean cliff at South Head in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, Australia. It's a cliff, and it's located in the suburb of Watsons Bay, and it's a popular tourist destination, but it's infamous for suicides. So what he did was he, faked his own suicide. So then they believe that he fled to, that's how he ended up fleeing to Queensland and Victoria. He then apparently went to New Zealand and lived in New Zealand for 2 years. What did he do there? It makes you wonder, did he do anything in New Zealand? Anyway, he returned apparently surreptitiously with a fake passport. And then in 1974, his mother was taken to hospital suffering from a heart attack, and he was arrested again. But the robbery and kidnap cases did not, they failed at the trial because their family lawyer, the Millats, well, they might have been a poor family, but they had a family lawyer who helped get Millat off on those charges. And that was it. He got a job as a truck driver, and he was working on and off for the Roads and Traffic Authority for 20 years. And it's during that time that he attempted to rape and murder other women, hitchhikers. So your friend Kelly was very, very lucky, I think, wasn't she? Because if she was actually in his car, my God. Anyway, so let's have a look at it. So these, I want to look at these victims now. It's very important to remember the victims. So I'll share this. So in 1989, Australians Deborah Everest and James Gibson, both 19, left Melbourne. The couple first went to Sydney, stayed at a backpacker hostel. They were last seen heading for Confess, planning to hitchhike to Albury. A day after they were last seen, a bushwalker found Gibson's camera by the road at Galston Gorge in northern Sydney. They took the camera home and only reported it when the empty backpack was found in the same area a month later and was linked to the couple's missing persons report. Yeah, at the end of the day, if you found a camera in the forest, you wouldn't think immediately it was connected with a murder, would you? So it's only afterwards when they've watched, I don't know if they could see the photos on it or whatever, but it's only afterwards where they've seen the coverage on the telly. Anyway, both of them sadly were found in the Belanglo State Forest on the 5th of October 1993 and had been stabbed repeatedly. 1991, 20th of January, Simone Schmidl, 20 years old, bless her. These are the victims so young, those other two, 19, her 20, set off to hitchhike from Sydney. She told acquaintances she was off to Melbourne to meet her mother. She was last seen at a train station. And then on the 1st of November 1993, her body was found in the forest. She had died after suffering stab wounds, numerous stab wounds, one that went through her spinal column. 26th of December that same year, German backpackers Gabor Neugebauer and Anja Habschied, again 21 and 20, left the backpackers inn at King's Cross, Sydney, to hitchhike to Adelaide and Darwin. And in 1993, both were found in Belanglo State Forest. And Neugebauer had been bound and shot 6 times, whereas his partner had been beheaded. This man, This man is a total monster. In 1992, British citizens, Joanne Walters, Caroline Clark, so they were hitchhiking. You know, the thing is, young people think, you know, we always say to them, you know, don't do it alone, you know, always be with a friend or a partner. These people were, you know, together. They would have felt safer together, the partners and the friends. But you know what, when some twonk's got a gun or a knife or whatever, it doesn't matter. If there's one of you, two of you, or probably even five of you, it's dangerous. So they left King's Cross to hitchhike together around Australia. They were headed for Victoria to pick fruit and made it to the Bully Pass near Wollongong, where they reportedly asked for directions to the Hume Highway. And in 1992, in September, both were found in Belanglo State Forest. Joanne had been stabbed and Caroline had been shot 10 times. So these are the people that that we know are his victims. It's thought that there are many more victims, and it would take quite a long video to go through all that. Maybe I'll do that on another day, look into it a bit more. Anyway, so apparently the first day he arrived at jail, he was beaten by another inmate, and almost a year later he made an escape attempt alongside a convicted drug dealer and former Sydney councillor George Savas. The plan failed and Savas was found hanged in his cell the next day. That's suspicious, isn't it? I always think, you know, hangings in prison, I always wonder, you know, if they are genuine suicides. But we'll never know anyway. We'll never know. He's probably not much lost to the world anyway. But so he appealed against all his convictions, etc. And, you know, he then went on his final, he gave a final interview, a public interview on Australian Story. And he denied that any of his, because there's been speculation if any of his family were involved in these, you know, in helping him cover up or in the actual murders themselves. But he always denied it. He denied that they weren't, but we'll never know again, I suppose. He was diagnosed with cancer in 2019 in May, and he died, I think, that same year. Yeah, in October. He was 74 years old. And he wrote a letter to his family requesting that his funeral be paid for by the New South Wales government. My God, the face of it, the cheek of it. Anyway, they did try, and we're going to have a look now at that, at his last interview with the police. They did try to, well, where is it? Oh, right, I've lost it. I'll have to get it back up. They did try to interview him just before he died, and to try and find out if they could bring any closure to a couple of families that they thought he had been involved, but he didn't cooperate. He wouldn't cooperate. And we're going to have a look at that now. We're going to have a look at his last interview. So he was a twonk to the end, you know. He never redeemed himself in any way. He was a horrible, horrible man, this man. But a lot of his family, you know, still support him to this day.
It's a voice that will send shivers down your spine. Tonight, we can exclusively bring you Ivan Milat's chilling last words. It's a voice that will send shivers down your spine. Tonight, we can exclusively bring you Ivan Milat's chilling last words. The bedside interview with police, where Australia's worst serial killer refused his final chance to show mercy for the desperate families of his victims.
Today, Ivan is just about having a bit of a chat.
Gentle, coaxing words to a dying serial killer in a desperate attempt to extract the truth.
If there's things that you would like to speak to us about, we'd be happy to listen.
But his silence was as cruel as it was deafening. Police tried another strategy.
Why did it happen to those two lovely girls and the others?
Playing him interviews recorded by a current affair of some of the family of his victims.
You can't fathom what it does to someone.
Police appealing to his conscience.
You've got loved ones. How helpless and frustrated and absolutely destroyed would you be?
But that was met with denials of any wrongdoing.
You could put a blood torch to the ears or eye or whatever. And
You still can't help.
I can't help you.
He showed.
Twonk till the end. I can't help you. I can't help you. He had no interest in helping those families, even though they played him. You know, the words, the videos of the words of the families of the people that have had no answers. You'd think he'd at least, God, right near the end, at least would admit.
Showed absolutely no concern for their feelings. Showed absolutely no remorse. A completely cold, evil killer.
The pursuit of Ivan Millat continued right to the end. Detectives interviewed him on 8 different occasions, either at Long Bay or in hospital. The last time was last Thursday, and one more interview had been planned for today.
I always thought he was a great fella.
A tribute today from brother Richard, and then his own.
I always thought he was a great fella. So this is one of his brothers. So bear in mind, there were 10 brothers. There were 10 boys in that family.
Denial over the long-standing claims his brother had an accomplice.
Did you have anything to do with any of the murders that your brother was convicted of?
Nothing of anything. And I don't think he had anything to do with any of it.
But history.
So, I mean, that's a stupid question from the reporter, isn't it? So, you know, she's saying to him, did you have anything to do with any of his crimes? He's not going to say, well, yeah, actually, I helped him hide all the bodies and do all the murders. He's obviously not going to say that. But then he goes on and says, no, I didn't have anything to do with it. And he didn't have anything to do with it either. Good God.
He will tell a different story, guilty of 7 murders and suspected of several more.
The man's pure evil, and he just showed no remorse.
Damien Ryan, 9 News.
Down your spine. Tonight we can.
I'm just going to play this again because I want to see it again as well. Just when you sit, because you know, Ivan Millat, his family think he's a hero. His family think he's an absolute hero. I'm going to go on to show you something else about his family. And actually, one of his family members did go on to commit murder. You know, they just think he's some sort of hero. So there is something definitely wrong there in the family, I think. But let's just watch this video again.
That will send shivers down your spine. Tonight, we can exclusively bring you Ivan Millat's chilling last words, the bedside interview with police, where Australia's worst serial killer refused his final chance to show mercy for the desperate families of his victims.
Today, Ivan is just about having a bit of a chat.
Gentle, coaxing words to a dying serial killer in a desperate attempt to extract the truth.
If there's things that you would like to speak to us about, we'd be happy to listen.
But his silence was as cruel as it was deafening. Police tried another strategy.
Why did it happen to those two lovely girls and the others?
Playing him interviews recorded by a current affair of some of the family of his victims.
You can't fathom what it does to someone.
Police appealing to his conscience.
You've got loved ones. How helpless and frustrated and absolutely destroyed would you be?
But that was met with denials of any wrongdoing.
You could put a blood torch to the ears or eye or whatever. And
You still can't help.
I can't help you.
He showed absolutely no concern for their feelings. Showed absolutely no remorse. A completely cold, evil killer.
The pursuit of Ivan Millat continued right to the end. Detectives interviewed him on 8 different occasions, either at Long Bay or in hospital. The last time was last Thursday, and one more interview had been planned for today.
I always thought he was a great fella.
A tribute today from brother Richard, and then his own denial over the long-standing claims his brother had an accomplice.
Did you have anything to do with any of the murders that your brother was convicted of?
Nothing of anything, and I don't think he had anything to do with any of it.
But history will tell a different story, guilty of 7 murders and suspected of several more.
The man's pure evil, and he just showed no remorse.
Damien Ryan, 9 News.
So, yeah, he's a total twonk, isn't he? And to be honest, his brother's a bit of a twonk as well. So his brother, oh, no, I didn't have anything to do with that. And I don't think he had anything to do with that either. Of course he didn't. Anyway, so, yeah, I want to tell you. So, you think isn't that enough about Ivan Millat? But as I say, his family, a lot of his family just thought he was some sort of hero. And then one of his great nephews went on to commit murder, and his great nephew, let's have a look, Matthew Milat, he murdered his friend, his own friend. Him and another boy took his friend out into the Belanglo State Forest, into the forest where Ivan Millat killed a lot of his victims. And you know what? Something as well that Ivan Millat did, he didn't only kill them or whatever, he used them for target practice. Some of them, as well as sort of beheading one of them and God knows what else he did to them. He tortured them and he used them for he used their bodies for target practice. He's just a foul, foul man. And his great nephew, Matthew, he thought his uncle was the bee's knees. He's probably another button mushroom as well. The nephew of notorious serial killer Ivan Millat. Apparently, he's popular, charming, and a hero behind bars as he serves a life sentence for murdering his friend with an axe. So he was only 26 years old when this article was written, which was 2018. So we're 6 years on. So he'll be in his early 30s now. So he tortured and murdered his friend, David Ouchtaloni, in Belanglo State Forest, south of Sydney in 2010. He tortured him. So I wonder where he's got that from. So here he is, the twonk. He tortured him with a double-sided axe and made him beg for his life before killing him. And eerily, in the same forest, his uncle murdered 7 backpackers. So, is there like a murder gene running through this family or what? But anyway, apparently, Matthew Millat has been manipulating other prisoners and staff to gain advantages behind bars. See, he'll be dining out on that reputation, won't he, for the rest of his life? Oh yeah, my great uncle is Ivan Millat. How fantastic I am. Like having an uncle who's a serial killer and a twonk. What would you? God, you wouldn't tell anyone, would you, if you found out that one of your family? You wouldn't be going around telling everybody unless you had to, unless people found out. You wouldn't go around voluntarily, bragging that your uncle or one of your family was a serial killer. So at least he has got a good sentence. He's serving a 43-year sentence for the torture and murder of his friend in Sydney. And then we've got this picture of the button mushroom with his guns, trying to prove he's a man. This is the axe that he used to kill his friend. I don't know if it's the actual one. Or if it's just God, it looks like it's got blood on it, to be honest, but I don't know if it's the actual one or just what's the word, a replica. Made him beg for his life. What a horrible man. So Milat had also, so prison psychologists said his positive interactions with staff were likely an act to allow him greater privileges and special treatment behind bars. He'd been making inappropriate references to his offence and the use of weapons and other detainees, and was seen as a hero by other inmates. The other boys are all sort of, oh, Matthew Milat, because the murder's considered good in terms of status. The more serious your crime, the more status you have, a prison officer said. And with having the moustache twonk as his uncle, probably his notoriety, isn't it? So he said, I've seen the boys try to friend him rather than him friend the boys. He's quiet. I have no problem with him, but you didn't want to interact, probably because he was a Milat. He gives you this vibe, the feeling you used to get around him. I don't want to get close because he would manipulate. So in 18 months, he didn't receive a single visit, and even his mother, Deb, failed to turn up for an appointment related to his psychological assessment. Let's have a look at, so this is him when he was arrested. Let's have a look at this video. God, you feel for the parents, really.
He's Australia's worst ever serial killer. Now, meet Evil Ivan's deranged nephew, the copycat Milat.
He said, Ivan Millat, you know what we do. It says it all.
A must-see inside story into a cold-blooded killer. Plus, the teenage killers who captured their crime on camera. New inside story.
That actually story that it goes on to there, that's a very interesting crime as well. That maybe I'll put on the list for watching. That was an American crime, which was a young girl that literally her two friends killed her, two male friends killed her when she was house sitting. Anyway, that's a whole nother case. But here we've got, unfortunately, in the true crime world, you're never short of videos to make on different cases to make. Unfortunately, there are so many. But
serial killer.
Here he is.
Now, meet Evil Ivan's deranged
There he is, the guy.
nephew, the copycat Milat.
He said, Ivan Millat, you know what we do.
Yeah, so apparently he said, I'm a Milat, you know what we do. So he was loving it. He was loving the fact that his uncle was Ivan Millat. He was, you know, he's a big tough man, thinking he was great. Hi, Ali. No sign of Tom. So we're looking at some Australian cases that have got echoes of everything. So Ali, I just want to say briefly, so there's 2 items that still haven't been delivered from that order. Anyway, I'll send you an email and let you know. I'm going to try and I'm just going to cancel them and try and get the money back. Yeah, so I think he did that murder just for the hell of it, you know, because it was supposedly his friend, or whether it was over a drug deal gone wrong, or, you know, I don't know what his motive was, just probably because he's a twonk, to be honest. Hi, Michelle. Now, and one more thing before I finish that I want to tell you about, I suppose because Ivan Millat had such a big family, if you're looking at, you know, there's 14 kids in his family, you know, 13 siblings, you know, there's bound to be, one of his relatives ended up being a murderer, that guy that we just looked at. And now I just want to, so this person that had written to me about Ivan Millat also sent me this article, which is interesting. But do you know the program Married at First Sight? We have that in the UK as well. I think most countries have got a version of it, haven't they? Well, so a girl that was on Married at First Sight, after she got married, it turns out that she is a relative of Ivan Millat. And but of course her husband didn't know. I mean, it's not her fault, obviously, but her husband didn't know that until after they were married, and they were just sat down about to watch that wolf fall. So let's have a look. So Married at First Sight star Samantha Murphy is related to Australia's worst serial killer Ivan Millat. As it's revealed, she shared her dark family secret after her husband suggested they watch Wolf Creek. So this is her. I mean, I feel for her because it's not her fault, whatever he did, you know. And whereas the other twonk ended up murdering someone himself and thought it was great that it was related to Ivan Millat, she obviously wasn't so happy about it, didn't want to tell anybody about it. But apparently it will not, this family linked to the backpacker killer will not be addressed on the show. And the Gold Coast based fashion brand designer, 27, left producers and her on-screen husband Al Perkins stunned when he revealed during filming last year she was the granddaughter of Milat's younger sister, Shirley Sore. So she's the granddaughter of one of Ivan's sisters. And apparently she broke down in tears when her husband, 25, you know, her new husband that she met through this program, suggested that they watch the 2005 horror movie Wolf Creek. I've not seen that movie. I must look out for it, try and watch it, which is loosely based on Milat's grisly crimes. So Al wanted to watch Wolf Creek one night and things turned awkward really quickly, a well-placed source told Daily Mail Australia. Let's have a look at the photos. So this is her, Samantha Murphy. This, of course, is the twonk with his great big gun. There she is again. All right, so this is the husband. So this is who she ended up marrying, up from Married at First Sight. And he'd said to her it'd be fun to watch Wolf Creek because he hadn't seen it yet, and he thought a scary film would help them bond. Yeah, well, it was wrong, wasn't it? But anyway, he didn't know. And he was then shocked because he had absolutely no clue about her family. It was very awkward. Sam was hesitant, but she just had to tell him. He was gobsmacked. I mean, it is not her fault. It's nothing to do with her, but it's the sort of thing, you know, you would probably want to know, wouldn't you? You know, you wouldn't want to find out once you were already married to someone, you know, about that family, especially the brother, that other brother, you know, who said he's a fantastic fella and he'd not done anything wrong. And this is the film, the Australian cult horror movie film. Why have I never seen this? Anyway, and it was starring John Jarrett, who I don't actually know who he, you know, don't know him as an actor, but apparently it was inspired by the real life murders committed by Milat in the early 1990s. And there she is. So these are her parents, Veronica and Paul. So one of them is the child of Ivan's sister, younger sister. Here he is again with his big guns. And there he was just before he died of cancer. Yeah. Yeah, he died of cancer, but still wouldn't give his secrets away, wouldn't help out any families. Yeah. How do I get out of that? How do I get out of that? Hang on. Yeah, so that must have been, you know, difficult for her to say. So Moitz's grandmother, Shirley Swar, who died in 2003, okay, she's died. She was a staunch supporter of her killer brother and is said to have helped him get rid of a gun. This is what I mean, his family. I'm not saying her, obviously, but his family, his siblings, they thought he was marvellous, wonderful, and would not condemn him. So she married her husband Jerry in 1964. They had 2 children, later got divorced. And Shirley used to take her grandchildren to the prison to visit her brother on many occasions. What is wrong with these people? Do you imagine it? Oh yeah, what we're doing today, Mummy? Well, Grandma, what we're doing today, Grandma? Oh, we're going to visit your great uncle in prison. And oh, what's he in prison for? Oh, well, he's a serial killer, but don't worry. I mean, for goodness sake, what's wrong with her? Oh, anyway, so it's just saying he murdered 7 backpackers and hitchhikers, but he's suspected of killing others. Hey, and a dog scrabbling on the sofa. And then it lists his victims. We've been through the victims, and apparently they were contacted for comment. Channel 9 and Moitzi were contacted for comment, but did not respond. So there, yeah, he may have died a couple of years ago, but he's still having an effect on people. It's just incredible. Incredible. Don't start barking. You've been very good. We've had no barking so far. Okay, so there you go. Yeah, imagine that when you've got your grandkids for the day. Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll go and visit my brother in prison, the serial killer. That's a nice day out for the kids, isn't it? Lovely day out for the kids. So, something wrong with some people. Honest to God, there just is. I mean, even if you went to see him, at the end of the day, he was still her brother, so maybe she did want to go and see him. You don't take your grandchild. You don't take your grandchildren to go and see a serial killer in prison. Fuck's sake. Sorry, excuse my French. Little swear word broke out there. So, yep. So we've got a lot more to find out about Sam, but just the reason that it occurred to me, obviously there's a connection with Sam's murder because of the forest and what have you. And, he took these poor people into the forest and did whatever he did, and played with them really. Played with them, tortured them, used them for target practice, stabbed them many, many times. Probably there were SEX offences as well. I think by the time they found the bodies, maybe that sort of evidence was not there anymore. And he got away with it over a long period of time because it was at a time when, the DNA and the phone tracking and things that we've got now, we didn't have. So this was what sort of the reason for me showing this, talking about this case, as we're following, sort of waiting for Samantha to be brought home, is would this Patrick Stevenson, if he is guilty, would he have ended up, if it was a different time, if you went back like 40 years, before DNA, before phone pings, before all this extra evidence we've got now, like dash cams and CCTVs, etc., would he have gone on and do, would he have not been caught and carry on and do other things, so, is it, and is it now, does it now mean, because there did seem to be a time during the 70s and 80s, there were a lot of serial killers. Most of the serial killer cases that I end up covering, they're quite old cases, because do you think now that serial killers get stopped in their tracks more? They're obviously still going to start off down that road, but do they not get as far as they used to get years ago because of DNA, because of technology, etc.? Do they get stopped in their tracks earlier and not, like before when they'd go on for years? And the CODIS thing in America has been especially important there, and probably in other countries. There's a central base now, isn't there, for DNA and things, whereas before it was all state control. So if someone committed a murder in one state, probably the same in Australia, wouldn't necessarily get connected to a murder in another state. But whereas now I think it's all over the world. You know, you've got there's probably a central base. I don't know enough about it really, but you know, is it easier to trace serial killers even if they've operated in different countries? Because I bet any money if Ivan Millat went to live in New Zealand for 2 years, there's no way that he lived there for 2 years and didn't do anything. You know, so in my opinion. Yeah, Ali, that's right. Keeping quiet, because if you might get a chance to catch up, the first case that we looked at on this video was a case in Ballarat where that's exactly what somebody did. The poor victim was not found for 3 months. By the time the victim was found, the decomposition was so bad they couldn't establish the cause of death. The person pled guilty to manslaughter and got 10-year sentence. 10 years for murdering someone, hanging him up at first to try and make it look like suicide, and then deciding not to do that and to go and take them off and bury them in a mine shaft, move into their apartment. This was a woman, by the way, her friend, the friend of the poor unfortunate victim, and then finally got caught and only got 10 years because they pled guilty to manslaughter, and because the body was so decomposed they couldn't establish a cause of death. So is that the the reason behind what Patrick Stevenson is doing? Because this case was in Ballarat and he will know about that case, or certainly his lawyer will know about that case. So is that what is being advised? Don't say anything about where the body is until the last minute, and then tell them where the body is and then say it was manslaughter and you'll only get 10 years. He'd be 32 when he gets out, if that happened. Anyway, thank you for watching. Have a great Saturday, everyone. I know for some of you it's Saturday night, I suppose, isn't it? But just have a great whatever you're doing, and take care. Don't hitchhike, please. Don't hitchhike. Hitchhiking, God. You think like people used to hitchhike all the time, didn't they? Some people still do. I would. There's no way I could get in a car. I can't even get in a taxi on my own. I don't even like getting in a taxi on my own, a proper taxi. So I certainly won't get in an Uber, but I don't even like getting in official taxis. I certainly wouldn't hitchhike. You know, it's once you're in a car, that's it. You've had it. You've just got no chance. You get it. You know, my recommendation to anyone, and if somebody's trying to abduct you and get you in a car, just kick off them. I'd rather get shot at the side of the car, you know, then go off in the car, and God knows then when they take you somewhere and they can do whatever they like, you don't know what they're going to do. I'd rather they shot me, stabbed me or whatever before I even got in that car, because there's no way I'm getting in the car. But anyway, thank you. So take care. Yeah, it's going to be warm here today. It's a beautiful day, so I'm going to get some sun, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. And as always, till I see you again, may your God. Oh, by the way, don't forget, send me in your Irish things, because remember, we're celebrating St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. So send me in anything you've got, photos, pictures, or anything Irish, poems, songs, whatever, because we'll be doing a quiz. We're going to be doing an Irish quiz as well. So that'll be fun. We're going to have some fun tomorrow. We're going to leave true crime behind. And celebrate St. Patrick's Day, have a Guinness or a little tipple of something, whatever floats your boat, or, you know, whatever. Okay, so I'll see you really soon. And until then, may your God go with you. Bye.